Hello, this is William and welcome back to yet another lesson on philosophy. And today I thought we were going into the subject of perception because what you perceive is not the same thing as I perceive. Even if I stand right next to you on the road and let's say there's a car crash, what I perceive and what is real in my world is not the same in your world, even though you're standing right next to me. To start it off, how do you perceive reality? Well, you perceive it through your senses, literally. And then you, as soon as I mentioned that, you do realize that there are people who are blind and there are people who are deaf, and they perceive the world slightly different to a person who is not deaf or not blind. So basically, the more senses you have, the more you perceive around you, the better your perception may become. But it also depends on more than just the senses, because the senses is, well, you can sense things emotionally too, adding a extra layer of what you perceive. Maybe someone said, oh, there was a miracle, that thing that happened went so well, while another person would perceive it as just dumb luck, or a third person, well, it was bound to happen because it hasn't happened before. So depending on both emotional senses and actual senses, what is perceived and what perception one may have changes. I'm going to use a card deck again. And your version of reality will most likely be that I absolutely know what card this is. Because, well, why wouldn't I know which card this is? You only see the back of it, but I 100% must know what card it is. But what if I told you that your perception was totally wrong? What if I tell you that I have no clue what card this is? That sounds a bit strange maybe, but actually it's the truth, because I placed two cards with the faces against each other. I have no clue what cards these are. But that's the thing with perception, because you can be 100% certain that someone knows something that you don't. And it's a bit of a trickery, really. Because what you know may not be the truth. And actually we see this all world round. I mean, just taking religion for an example. I mean, whoever believes in a certain version of divinity or a certain version of God is 100% certain they are right and everyone else is just wrong. Well, there are a few exceptions, of course. There are a few religious people who actually believe they may be wrong. And to me, those people are most likely the only real religious people, because any form of real religion, in my eyes, needs to be based on the idea that you most likely don't know everything. Who knows? But let's go back to this about how you perceive the world. Because most people would think that you only have one perspective. I mean, you were there, you saw what happened. That is what always happened. Now let's go back to you standing there on the road. And let's say you were standing all alone. And instead of a car crash, let's just say a bird flew by. You were just standing there, you saw the bird flew by, fly by, maybe even. And that's it. But let's say that you had one eye closed when it happened. Actually, just by doing that, you have shifted your entire perspective, because normally you see from here until to here. And by closing one eye, you don't see from here till to here, but from here until to here. Same goes if it was the other eyes opened. So you can actually shift your own perception and your own perspective of what actually do happen, or easily miss something. What if you didn't have any eyes at all? Well, you maybe not even noticed the bird going by, or maybe you heard it. Maybe you thought it wasn't a bird, maybe you thought it was a frisbee flying by. Who knows? So, quite literally, your perception will change a lot depending on what senses you have that is active at that moment. But also your emotional senses. If you were really happy, having a really good day, you might be like, oh yeah, a bird. And then it will be like, oh yeah, I saw a lucky bird today, when you talk about the thing later on. But if you have fear of birds, maybe that would have been the most terrifying thing happening that day. And if you mention about this thing later on, through your perspective, it was a horrific moment that you're going to talk again about. So actually what emotional state you is, or what emotional state you have, actually do affect your perception and what you do believe happened at a specific point in time. So even if you're standing right next to a person and there goes a car accident, you may have a very different view of what happened. And actually, if you look at the statistics and the police, when they are doing investigations and stuff, they often find that eyewitnesses sometimes have very wide versions of what actually did happen. And that's because, well, everyone's perspective is a bit different. Everyone's perception of reality is different. Everyone perceives reality different. So, what is real and what is reality in your eyes may very well not be the real reality. Because what is real reality when we only have to perceive it? Maybe we can never truly experience reality as it is. We can only think that we know, but we can't possibly ever truly know. And my perspective will always be different to yours.